A fireworks technician spent 20 years making explosions look beautiful. He knew every fuse, every wire, every danger hidden behind the colors in the sky. But on one 4th of July night, a single malfunction changed his life forever. And what thousands of people witnessed above that city became something no one there would ever forget. A miracle of the Virgin Mary that began with 6 fireworks launching at the wrong time. But before we continue, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I'd love to see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary are reaching. Raymond Callahan was 60 years old and had worked in pyrotechnics for more than 2 decades. He had the kind of face shaped by years outdoors. Deep lines around the eyes, rough hands marked by burns and small scars, shoulders slightly bent from carrying heavy equipment his whole life. He drove an old pickup truck that rattled every time it started, filled with cables, toolboxes, launch tubes, and crates of fireworks. Raymond wasn't flashy. He wasn't the kind of man who told stories loudly in bars or tried to impress anyone. He showed up, did his job carefully, got paid, and went home. Quiet, reliable, invisible to most people. But before every fireworks show, Raymond always did one thing. Around his neck hung a small silver medal of the Virgin Mary attached to a thin chain. The medal was old, worn smooth in places from years of being rubbed between his fingers. His mother had given it to him when he was 22 years old, right before his very first professional fireworks event. Before every show, ask for protection, she had told him. For yourself and for everyone watching. And Raymond never forgot. Every single time before pressing the ignition button, he touched that medal. Not because he considered himself deeply religious. He wasn't. He rarely went to church. He didn't speak about faith. He didn't pray before meals or keep a Bible by his bed. His mother had been the believer in the family. Raymond was practical. He trusted preparation, timing, discipline, hard work. Still, he kept wearing the medal. At first because his mother asked him to. Then because it became habit. And eventually because after she passed away 6 years earlier, touching the medal became the closest thing Raymond had to speaking with her again. Do you know how certain objects stop being objects after someone dies? A watch, a necklace, a photograph. They become pieces of the person you lost. That medal had become that for Raymond. And life continued normally. Show after show. Small-town festivals. Weddings. County fairs. Sporting events. Years passed. Then came that 4th of July. For pyrotechnic crews in America, Independence Day is everything. It's the biggest night of the year. Entire cities gather together waiting to look at the sky. Expectations are enormous. One mistake can destroy a reputation forever. That year, Raymond desperately needed the job to go well. The previous months had been rough. Contracts had slowed down. Expenses kept growing. Equipment repairs, permits, insurance, fuel. Bills stacked quietly in drawers he pretended not to notice. Raymond never cut corners on safety, even when money got tight. If better equipment was needed, he bought it. If defective parts needed replacement, he replaced them. Good for the audience. Terrible for his bank account. But Raymond carried all of it alone. He never complained to anyone. Pride kept his problems private. Then the city hired him for the largest 4th of July celebration in the region. Thousands of people would attend. Sponsors, politicians, news crews. If the show succeeded, Raymond could rebuild his business. If it failed, it might finish him completely. So he prepared like his life depended on it. For days he assembled launch racks, wired ignition systems, tested sequences, calibrated timers, checked angles, measured distances. 6 major fireworks racks formed the centerpiece of the finale, programmed carefully to launch at separate intervals across several minutes. Raymond reviewed the timing over and over until he practically memorized every second. By the morning of July 4th, everything was ready. The crowd began arriving hours before sunset. Families carrying folding chairs. Children wrapped in American flags. Teenagers laughing with sparklers. Elderly couples sitting together quietly. Food trucks. Music. Excitement everywhere. Raymond watched from the restricted operations area behind the launch zone. Thousands of people, all trusting him. That weight sat heavily on his chest. As the sun disappeared, the sky darkened into deep blue. The city lights flickered on one by one. Fireflies drifted through the grass near the field. The announcer's voice echoed through loudspeakers. Showtime. Raymond performed his final inspection slowly, carefully. Everything looked perfect. Then he reached under his shirt, pulled out the Virgin Mary medal, pressed it between his fingers, and kissed it lightly. "Protect me," he whispered, "and protect everybody here." For a second, he thought about his mother, her voice, her smile. Then he tucked the medal back inside his shirt and took position at the control board. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Raymond triggered the opening sequence. The first fireworks exploded beautifully overhead. Red, gold, blue, silver sparks cascading across the sky like waterfalls. The crowd erupted instantly. Children screamed in excitement. People pointed upward. Phones recorded everything. Applause rolled across the field. Raymond finally allowed himself a small smile. It was working perfectly. Minute after minute, the show unfolded exactly as planned. The bursts synchronized with music. Giant chrysanthemums of light bloomed across the night sky. Spiraling comets streaked upward. The audience gasped with every explosion. Raymond monitored the panels constantly, eyes moving from timers to launch indicators to backup systems. Then something happened. One small flicker on the control board. So fast he almost missed it. Raymond frowned. A warning light blinked once, then disappeared. His stomach tightened immediately. He leaned closer to the panel. Everything appeared normal again, but something felt wrong. And before he could react, all 6 finale racks activated at the exact same moment. Every single one. Not one after another. Not according to sequence. All together. Raymond's eyes widened in horror. "No," he whispered, because he understood instantly what the crowd didn't. Thousands of pounds of fireworks were now firing simultaneously in completely uncontrolled timing. And if the launch angles failed, if one rack tipped, if one shell exploded low, people could die. Raymond watched the disaster unfold in front of him, and his blood went cold. All 6 racks were firing at once. Explosions stacked over each other, sparks flooding the sky in chaotic bursts. Nothing matched the programmed sequence anymore. "No, no, no, no," Raymond whispered under his breath. But it was too late. Once fireworks ignite, there's no stopping them. The show had escaped his control, and in those few terrifying seconds, Raymond's mind spiraled. 20 years of work, gone. The city contract ruined. Sponsors furious. His reputation destroyed in front of thousands of people. The debts already crushing him would only get worse after tonight. He imagined lawsuits, canceled contracts, bankruptcy, everything collapsing at once. All of it flashed through his mind faster than the fireworks exploding overhead. At first, the crowd didn't understand what was happening. Most people thought the sudden intensity was intentional, maybe part of a dramatic finale. But slowly the atmosphere changed. The explosions were too close together, too aggressive, too loud. People began exchanging nervous looks. "What's happening?" one man asked. "I think something's wrong," his wife answered quietly. Families started gathering their belongings. Children moved closer to their parents. No panic yet, but concern, that unmistakable feeling that something wasn't right. And Raymond was standing dangerously close to the launch racks. Under normal conditions, the distance was perfectly safe. But this was no longer a normal situation. The violent chain reaction caused the support structure holding the fireworks to shift out of position. Raymond saw it happen. The racks tilted slightly. Then more. The launch angles changed. Some fireworks began shooting lower than they should have. Way lower. Raymond's chest tightened instantly. Because now this wasn't just a failed show. This was dangerous. Very dangerous. Then something happened that nobody could explain. The fireworks exploding wildly overhead suddenly began forming patterns. Not random bursts anymore. Shapes. Lines. Movement. In the middle of the crowd, someone pointed upward. "Look," a man shouted. People lifted their heads and froze. Because above the city, inside all that chaos of sparks and smoke, something was appearing in the sky. Not an abstract shape. Not coincidence at first glance. A silhouette. A woman, wrapped in what looked like a mantle, blue light shimmering through the fireworks. Clear enough that people began recognizing it instantly. A little girl near the front grabbed her mother's arm. "Mommy," she whispered, pointing upward. "It's the Virgin Mary." More voices followed. "Oh my God. Do you see that? That's her." The entire crowd stared upward in silence. The figure lasted only seconds. 5 maybe. 7 at most. But for the people standing there that night, it was unmistakable. The outline of the Virgin Mary suspended in fireworks above the city. Then slowly, the sparks faded. The shape dissolved into smoke, and the sky returned to normal. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Thousands of people standing beneath the night sky, in complete silence. Then someone started crying. Then another person. Then more voices. You saw it too? I swear I saw it. That was her. People trembled while trying to process what they had witnessed. But suddenly attention shifted away from the sky, because someone noticed something else. The tilted fireworks racks were now pointed directly toward Raymond, and they were still firing. The fireworks guy, someone screamed. People turned toward the launch field, and what they saw made their stomachs drop. Raymond stood there completely exposed. Too close. Far too close. The fireworks were now shooting directly toward him. Raymond saw them coming. Bright streaks of fire racing toward him faster than his brain could react. He tried to move, tried to run, but fear locked his body in place. Have you ever been so terrified that your body simply stops listening to you? That's what happened to Raymond. He froze completely. The explosion screamed toward him. He closed his eyes and waited for impact. But instead, the fireworks passed beside him. One to the left, another above his shoulder, another so close he felt the heat burn across his face. The air roared around him. Sparks exploded on every side. But somehow, not one touched him. People in the crowd watched in horror. Then disbelief. He's still standing. How is he not hit? I saw them pass right by him. Smoke swallowed the entire launch area for several seconds. Nobody could see clearly anymore. The crowd held its breath, waiting for the worst. Then slowly, the smoke drifted away, and Raymond was still there, standing exactly where he had been before, motionless, untouched. The crowd erupted into stunned confusion. First the image in the sky, now this. People stared at Raymond like they were looking at something impossible. Raymond looked down at himself. His clothes were scorched from the heat, covered in soot. His hands trembled violently, but there were no burns, no injuries, nothing. He touched his face, his chest, his arms, completely unharmed. Raymond couldn't understand it. None of it made sense. Then suddenly, he remembered something. At the exact moment he froze. Right before the fireworks passed him, he had felt something. Cold. Not ordinary cold. A strange cool sensation wrapping around his body in the middle of all that fire and heat. Like a cloak. Like something surrounding him. Protecting him. At the time, terror had overwhelmed everything else. But now, standing there alive, the memory returned clearly. Later that night, Raymond drove home alone. The city was still buzzing behind him. People posting videos online, talking about the image in the sky, talking about the miracle. But Raymond barely heard any of it. His mind replayed everything again and again. The fireworks, the silhouette, the cold sensation around him, the impossible survival. His house was small and quiet. One bedroom, tiny kitchen, old furniture, nothing fancy. He stepped inside after midnight, exhausted beyond words. He showered slowly. Black soot washed down the drain. But the feeling remained. That sensation of having been protected by something he couldn't explain. Afterward, Raymond sat alone on the edge of his bed. For a long time, he simply stared at nothing. Then slowly, he reached beneath his shirt and pulled out the Virgin Mary medal hanging around his neck. The silver was worn smooth from years of use. 20 years of touching it before every fireworks show. 20 years of habit. 20 years of his mother's voice echoing quietly in the background of his life. And sitting there in silence, Raymond finally understood something. The protection had always been there. Even when he stopped thinking about faith. Even when he treated the medal like routine. Even when he drifted far away from prayer. His mother's faith had never left him. And somehow, on that 4th of July night, it reached him again. Raymond closed his hand tightly around the medal, closed his eyes, and for the first time in many years, he truly prayed. It wasn't a formal prayer. It wasn't something memorized from church. It was a conversation. A conversation with the Virgin Mary. A conversation with God. A conversation with his mother. And sitting there alone on the edge of his bed, Raymond cried harder than he had in years. When the prayer ended and he finally opened his eyes again, something inside him felt different. Not dramatically, not loudly, but deeply, like something that had been asleep for years had finally awakened. And Raymond knew one thing with certainty. He was no longer the same man who had walked onto that fireworks field earlier that night. The days passed, but the story of that 4th of July refused to disappear. People who attended the event told friends. Those friends told others. Videos spread online. The image in the sky. The silhouette of the Virgin Mary. The pyrotechnician standing unharmed in the middle of exploding fireworks. Everywhere Raymond went, people were talking about it. Then the phone call started. At first, only one or two. Then dozens. Birthdays. Weddings. Corporate events. Graduation celebrations. Entire cities requesting him specifically. I heard about you. People would say over the phone. We want you for our event. Raymond was stunned every single time. You know what happened, right? He would ask carefully. The show malfunctioned. We know. People answered. But we also know what happened afterward. And Raymond never quite knew how to respond to that. The calls kept coming. Week after week. Month after month. Soon his schedule was completely full. More work than he had received in years. The debts that had nearly buried him slowly disappeared one by one. Bills got paid. Equipment got repaired. The pressure crushing his chest for months finally eased. Raymond became the most requested pyrotechnician in the entire region. Not just because of his experience. Not just because of the quality of his shows. But because of that night. Because people believed something sacred had happened there. And somehow, they wanted to be close to it. Raymond continued working exactly like before. Same truck. Same tools. Same long hours. But internally, everything had changed. Before every show, he still touched the Virgin Mary medal around his neck. But now he no longer did it automatically. Now he paused, closed his eyes, and truly prayed. Protect me, he whispered quietly, and protect every person here tonight. Then after a small silence, he always added, and thank you. Thank you for never giving up on me. Every fireworks display became something different after that. Not just entertainment. A prayer made of light. Little by little, Raymond returned to church. At first it felt strange. He had been away so long he barely remembered when to stand, when to kneel, when to sit. But week after week, the awkwardness faded. He started recognizing faces. People greeted him warmly. Some remembered him from the 4th of July event. Others simply welcomed him without questions. And for the first time in many years, Raymond felt like he belonged somewhere. A full year passed. Then another 4th of July arrived. And the city hired him again for the exact same celebration. Same field. Same crowd. Same sky. When Raymond received the contract, he sat quietly at his kitchen table for several minutes staring at the paper. A year earlier, he thought that night had destroyed his life. Now he realized it had rebuilt it. On the day of the event, Raymond arrived early. Much earlier than necessary. He inspected every rack carefully. Checked every fuse. Every wire. Every angle. Then checked them all again. 3 times. Not from fear. From respect. As the sun began setting, Raymond walked alone toward the control area. The sky slowly darkened above him. Crowds gathered again across the field. Families carrying blankets. Children laughing. Music drifting through warm summer air. And for a moment, Raymond simply stood there looking upward. Then slowly, he reached beneath his shirt and pulled out the Virgin Mary medal. The silver was so worn now the image could barely be seen anymore. But Raymond didn't need to see it. He knew exactly who was there. He kissed the medal softly. Protection for me and for everyone here, he whispered like always. Then after a pause, thank you for another year. Thank you for everything. He tucked the medal back inside his shirt and gave the signal to begin. The first fireworks launched perfectly into the sky. Gold, blue, silver, deep red bursts opening like flowers across the darkness. The crowd gasped in awe. Children pointed upward. Couples held each other close. Families sat together beneath the lights. And Raymond smiled quietly while watching the colors spread above the city. Because now he finally understood something. His mother had known all along. The medal had never been meaningless. The protection had always been there. Even when he ignored it. Even when he drifted away. Even when he moved through life like a man asleep. He simply hadn't opened his eyes yet. And standing there beneath the fireworks, Raymond offered another silent prayer. A prayer of gratitude. Of faith. Of love. Sometimes we spend our entire lives trying to control every detail. Planning everything perfectly. Timing every moment exactly right. And then suddenly, everything goes wrong. The fireworks launch too early. The sequence breaks apart. Chaos takes over. But sometimes, it's inside that chaos that something beautiful appears. A sign no one planned. A blue mantle in the sky. Protection arriving when nobody expected it. A faith reborn in the middle of fear. Raymond spent 20 years working with fireworks, but it took one malfunctioning display to ignite something far more important inside him. Something his mother planted years earlier. Something that had waited patiently beneath the surface all that time. Something called faith. And if you made it this far to the end of Raymond's story, write "Blue Mantle" in the comments. Because that was the protection Raymond believes surrounded him that night. And every time I read those words, I'll know one more person still believes miracles can happen when hope seems lost. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And if you've ever experienced something you still can't fully explain, share it below. Someone out there may need to hear your story today. May the Virgin Mary continue blessing and protecting you and your family. Amen.